This is TWiT.
Now, let's talk about recall, because on Sunday, I had a great panel of smart people,
Okay.
and I asked them about recall, because, of course,
did they all lose their minds?
No.
Oh, good.
I said, would you install this? I said, yeah, I can't wait. In fact, we all agreed, I certainly believe, it should go farther. It needs to be on all platforms to be really useful.
It needs to be on all your PCs so you can sync all your data as well, right?
Well, yeah,
as an individual.
An AI that's trained on what I'm doing or can answer questions about what I'm doing should see everything I'm doing to be really useful.
That's right.
So
that was
really
the first thing I asked. I said,
Yeah.
okay, I use, I don't know, 18 different computers in a year. How does this help me if I can only have the data from one computer and have it stuck on that computer?
And this is where moral panic gets us into trouble, because Microsoft isn't doing that because they know the hue and cry would be
That's right.
so...
Oddly, for a company that seems so disconnected from reality when they announced this, they actually did see that this would be a problem for people. But
So I think a group of adults took over the problem and said, "You guys screwed this up."
But what I don't like,
Got it right.
I'm losing a feature that I would really like, which is it to be everywhere.
That's right.
And make a deal with Apple and Google and put it on my Android and iPhone too, for that matter.
All right, don't get crazy. But so it will get everywhere. It will go everywhere, like cancer does. It will get there. But but in the recall announcement, you actually do see those two sides of Microsoft I was talking about, or Windows, I guess in this case, which is the kind of gleefully clueless Google-like part of the company that's like, you trust us for our privacy protections and security. And we're like, wait, I'm sorry, what did you just say? Like, most people in the audience, like, are you describing someone else? Because that's not how we think of you.
Right.
But then they also take the security and privacy strongly enough to actually, build in some pretty serious protections, right?
Yeah.
The biggest mistake they made, though, was they were going to announce it. They were going to release it to the public without testing it privately at all. Now, granted, I know in preview, but seriously,
I think it was just deadlines, right? They were trying to beat the deadlines.
This was a huge, huge mistake.
I totally agree.
That to me is just and the other thing that they were going to do. So, people will point at these little nitty gritty so-called security configuration changes they made. I'm not saying they didn't make any. I'm actually literally saying they didn't make any. But you know what? Don't worry about that. Let's just agree that you're all wrong and I'm right, and we'll just move on. See how easy that is? No. That's not what I'm sorry. I'm joking. I'm sorry.
That's not how that works.
Here. No. Let's just agree
Have
that.
you tried that on Stephanie? I'm just curious.
It doesn't work with her at all, actually.
So strange.
Let's not go down that path. So with recall, let's just say that, to my opinion, the biggest changes, the most material changes to this feature or app, whatever you want to call it, or I think there are three of them. So one is that they called it optional, but what they really meant was opt-out, which is gross.
Right.
Now it's opt-in. So it's not enabled by default. You have to opt into it to use it. And by the way, this came up last week or sometime in the past. Richard, you will remember this. One of the weird things about Windows 11 on ARM Snapdragon version with all the LLMs is like they're going to provide us with this ISO. Are the LLMs going to be included? And we know that because it's 5.1 gigabytes or whatever, they are not.
It's huge.
So what's that experience like? Well, that experience is like you go to run an AI feature and it says, hold on a sec, we got to download something. And it downloads the LLMs that feature needs. And each time you use one of those features, that's how that will work. If you do like a true clean install with the Windows 11 on ARM ISO, that's how recall works. So you install this new build in the dev channel of the Windows Insider program, which, by the way, doesn't take very much time at all because I think it's just installing the app, honestly.
Yeah.
I know.
This should always be downloaded. Like everything that can be downloaded should be downloaded.
I couldn't agree more. But again, I think
that's the Xbox.
It's like they're trying to do the right thing, but it's not the right thing for everybody, and they don't give the people that just want that the ability to do that. It's so complicated. I don't understand it. But anyway, so you install recall, you reboot, you're like, great, you run recall. It's like, nope, you got to go to Windows Update, install something. Like, all right. So you go to Windows Update, you install something. It takes a little while. All right, go back to recall. All right, here we go. Nope, still got to go back to Windows Update, got to install another thing. All right, cool. You're like, all right, this is it. You go back. Nope, there's one more thing. There's 3 LLMs you got to install. They don't all install together. It's crazy.
That's ridiculous.
I don't know why. Maybe that changes, but right now, when I did it, not the case.
Yeah.
All right. And then you run this thing. And you're like, huh, that's all it does. It just
it did all that for this.
It just runs in the background. It uses 0.006% CPU, and now I have 3 million screenshots of me browsing for pants on Amazon. Dear God, why? And you wonder, and by the way, every time you look away from the damn thing and come back, it does the Windows Hello ESS experience, which is a rather tedious process of authenticating. I think we talked about this last week, this notion of it doesn't just come up with the Windows Hello thing with a little, the little eyeball goes, is it you? Is it you? And when it finds you, it gives you a little OK button in the dialog you have to click to get by it.
It should just recognize you.
I know, it makes me crazy. But this is what happens again, all the outrage, whatever. Okay, fine. So
I'm starting to feel like actually, I felt this way for a while. There's a group of people who don't like anything.
Yep, and they just complain and complain and complain.
And they're really stopping tech. Like, I think this is out there, but it's possible that AI could be a transformative technology. It's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it could be a transformative technology that brings us into a future of flying cars and fusion electricity, basically free electricity, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But we may never get it because people are so afraid of it that they stymie it. And it bothers me that we're not getting stuff that we could get.
It bothers me.
Scaredy cats.
I've raised this issue a few times this year. This notion that the most technical people are the ones who are holding us back. Interestingly, in my, 16th rereading of Steve Vastanovsky's book, I was reminded of this phrase they had anyway inside Microsoft called the basement. Have you heard this term?
No.
So this is from one of the, I think it's Die Hard and Live Free, one of the Die Hard movies. There's a technical guy, the Warlock, and he lives in the basement. And these are the technical experts. These are the smartest. We know this thing inside and out. And so when you design a product like Windows or Office or whatever it is, and then you change the UI or you change the way it works, what you're doing is making life better for everybody. Hopefully. That's your goal. I'm sorry, your goal. Except for the guy in the basement or the audience that we'll describe collectively as the basement. Because these guys already know every little in and out of this thing as it is. And now you're changing it and they hate it because you've made them less useful or valuable or whatever it is.
Right? That's a lot of value in knowing where that cheese is. And
And so this is a phenomenon that is not new. It's been around for a long time. This came up in the discussion about Windows 8 and the start screen and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But, I just have to say, in my own experience, it's real. And the way it exhibits itself for me is like they announced this thing in May. They were going to ship it in June. They delayed it. There was some news over the summer, but not really. And then September, they're like, "This is what we're doing." So over the course of time, I've had to write about this thing 8 to 12 times, whatever it is. And every time you get the same 3 or 5 idiots who are like, I'll never install this thing. I'll never use it. I'll stop using Windows if I have to. And it's like, hey, thanks for jumping in. Great conversation. What are you doing here? Or maybe a better example is like when you write something about Apple and there are these guys who just hate Apple. They'll never use anything Apple makes. But they seize on a story about Apple and they get it just so they can get in and be like, screw this company. I would never waste money on an Apple product. It's like, hey, thanks for jumping in. What is it you're doing? Like, what do you think you're doing here? And this is a good example of something that, like Leo said, I think it's going to benefit a lot of people. I think it will be even better when, it's on multiple devices for sure. But normal, everyday, mainstream users, useful, we talked about this notion that maybe AI solves search finally, right? This thing that Microsoft has tried to solve so many times over so many decades that by analyzing things, instead of building indexes and making people add metadata and blah, 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 I was joking about the pants thing, by the way, but I did go to a site and look at some green pants so I could later type in green pants and see if it came up. Shocker.
You never actually own green pants is what you're saying.
No, I did. I was 7 and they matched. There were Garanimals that matched like the top with the bottom or something. I don't know. A long time ago. But the point of it was just to give it some nonsense excuse an excuse just to try something I knew what the result would be so I could see what happened, right?
Right.
So it works. Great.
It works.
I mean, my life hasn't imploded. Hackers haven't entered my network. The police haven't seized all my belongings.
It is essentially a search product, right? Is that this software now is analyzing these screenshots and creating a summary of it. So that you go do a search into that data set.
I want it. I want it everywhere.
Yeah. The thing they didn't say at the time back in May that they did say in September, and I'm not 100% sure I tied these two things together. They're not always together, but was the click to do piece, which, by the way, terrible Google-like name, but whatever, let's get over that. It's one thing to find something that you're looking for, great, but the next step is, triggering some action, like doing something with that thing you found. Now, depending on what you're looking for, maybe that's obvious, right? I don't know. But you can also go through your recall database or catalog, whatever they're calling it. And it will do text recognition if there's text in an image. It will do image recognition, obviously, if it's an image, whatever's in the image. And then you can right click on that thing and it will give you actions that you can do on that thing that are related to that thing. They're contextual, right? Now, this is another example of something that's going to be amazing when third parties can link into it, right? Like, it's pretty good what's there now because it's Microsoft stuff. So if it's an image, obviously you could edit this thing with Paint or something or whatever. Like, that stuff's all obvious. If it's text, you could do things like summarize it, make it longer, make it shorter, whatever. That's obvious. But someday there'll be an API. It will probably be called, I don't know, the Copilot runtime or some stupid thing like that.
I think it's more
just guessing.
It's more like agentic Copilot. I feel like that's where you're headed.
Yeah. Where you are, I'm trying to think of a third party, like maybe I use Affinity Photo, and now it can say something like, remove the background of this image using Affinity, or I'm just making something up. And that's not even a really good example. But or take this text and make a video with it using AI, using some app or whatever it might be. So this stuff is all really very much, I was going to say 1.0. It's not even 1.0, right? It's still a preview. It's still
playing around with it.
0.5 or whatever it is.
Well, I think about, like, Google does this to me all the time, where it takes a set of pictures that thinks are the same, which I'm pretty sure they're using a machine learning model to pull those pictures together, and then makes me a little animated sequence of them. And then says, did you want to save this? Because I made this for you.
Yeah. I just went through a thing with, I've been using Google Photos for years. And for some reason the other day, it was like, hey, do you want to take a few seconds to identify some people? We think we know who they are, but we just want to make sure. And, it's like Saddam Hussein and Hitler and my sister. It's like, and it's like, are they related? I'm like, yeah, I think they might be, but no. No, but it's like one of the things
that's what I could tell.
Yeah, one of the things that's fascinating about Google Photos explicitly is that it can identify a picture of my daughter when she was 2, and a picture of my daughter when she's 23, and say, these are the same people, aren't they? And it's like, yikes! And yes, they are. That's useful though, isn't it?
Yeah. Right after the dog died, it was really good at putting an assembly of my dog's pictures together and going, hey, look at this. It's like, hey, thanks for that. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. No, we still have. We have the same thing. And we have...
I very consciously rounded up all the pictures of the dog and put it in a folder away because I really don't want to look at them for a while.
Yep. Yeah. No, we have the same issue. So anyway, what we're talking. So recall. Yeah. So here's the thing. So I talked about the basement. I talked about these, the technical people. Just, I can't stand that this even exists. We get that you're never going to use it. Here's an idea. Quietly just never use it. You don't have to hear about it. But you guys are all familiar with the Register, right? These are the guys who, 20 years ago, every time they mentioned Microsoft, it was Micro Sloth. And I think with a $sign instead of an S, that kind of thing. And they always users were punters, like this kind of stuff. So these guys are they're a typical example of the basement. Super anti recall, wanted this thing to go away. Can't believe it's coming out. And now that it's out, they have to complain about it. And look, I think it's fair to say I am bracing for the first report where some security researcher says, hey, I found a problem with this thing. By the way, I haven't heard anything like that of you. So Not yet. So interesting, because they found that really early last time when they hacked into it and made it look like something stupid that we needed to worry about. But anyway, I have no doubt they're hammering away at it, trying to find all the problems.
I'm not unhappy that they are, because if there is a vulnerability, I think everybody wants to know about it.
I'm not unhappy either. I think this. Listen. What I said at the time was similar to what I said earlier in the show. Look, we can't make stuff up. Let's see what happens when it's out. Then then we can talk about it. Anywho, the register has a story about the problems now that it's out, and it is hilarious, not purposefully. Because what they want to say is, yeah, it's a security problem. I got in as an admin and I got into the encrypted database. They said we weren't going to be able to do that. Right. There's none of that. These are the problems. This is unbelievable. It's a little slow making snapshots. What?
What?
It's a little slow. In other words, let me ask you a question. Like, you're doing something right now that maybe in the future you might want to search for the thing you're doing right now. Like I'll use the green pants thing.
Yep.
When do you not need to search for that? It's right when you did it.
Yeah.
Right? It's sitting there in the browser tab. I don't need to find the green pants right now.
No.
But what they're saying is, yeah, the green pants snapshot didn't take it immediately. Like I had to wait like 30 seconds for it to appear. And you're like, okay.
Dun, dun.
What are you doing? Like okay. And then they're like, well, the OCR stuff works great, but recognizing what's in an image, it's not as accurate. Okay. Like what? I mean, like, what are you talking? This is what we're complaining about? Is this why it was delayed for 6 months? It's a little slow. Are you kidding me? This is how awful the world can be about nothing. It's nothing.
Hey, it's me, Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little snippet from Windows Weekly. If you want to see more and want to catch the whole show, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client or visit our website, twit.tv/WW. And of course, there's links right below me.